So this is a very special episode of the podcast because there was a learning moment for me involved. I shot this interview with Junelyn, but the sound was off. I must have accidentally pressed the mute button on the mic. So there is no sound, but I'm going to do a little voiceover of the interview explaining who Junelyn is, how we met, and what it is that Junelyn shares later in the video. So I hope that it's not too distracting, and I promise that we won't be having problems with the sound not coming through in the future. So without further ado, this is Strangers on a Train Part 2 with Junelyn. So there's an interesting story about this connection between Junelyn and I. Before I had the idea for the Strangers on a Train series, actually last Friday, I was on the train and I walked on and I was going to put my headphones on and just listen to music, but I had this thought about maybe there's somebody that you can interact with on the train. And I was kind of playing this game and like, who could it be? Who is it going to be? And I didn't want to be too aggressive with it. I wanted to let that person come to me. So I was sitting down, I took my headphones off, and I was looking around, and I just noticed Junelyn. And Junelyn actually told me in our interview that Junelyn is non-binary. And so I'll just be referring to Junelyn by Junelyn, or Junelyn's nickname Jones. But I noticed Jones, and I noticed Jones's energy. And I don't know, there's just something about Jones. And I kept looking at Jones, and eventually our eyes met, and we had this moment of like, are we actually going to be looking at each other? But we ended up holding the gaze and then being able to communicate and connect after. And I got Jones's contact information, and we were planning on meeting again. And actually this morning, as I was doing the podcast, I was having a difficult time getting something out, and I decided to go to lunch at Cafe Zao, and I was filming some B-roll, and it turns out that Jones was there, and was there with Jones's sister, and they were celebrating their grandmother who had just passed away. And Jones actually wrote a poem, and I asked if Jones would be okay with sharing the poem, and so that's what Jones is about to do here in the video. And I have gotten a copy of the poem, and I'm going to just read it for you guys. So I hope you enjoy. You could always tell what Grandma was feeling. Sideways glances, heavy eye rolls, and waggling eyebrows filled our childhoods while we feasted on buckets of cereal with screw-top lids. And no dinner was complete without thick, sweet Kool-Aid, 2 different kinds if you were lucky, poured from plastic pitchers. Standing on a step stool at the counter in Wyoming, I watched Grandma grate potatoes while the steam wafted up, heating my face. I remember my eyes widening in wonder as her hands turned red and the piles of shreds grew bigger. It was one of the first times I perceived love. Grandma's love was obstinate. Being loved by her meant being careful what you complained about, because her urgency and sincerity could topple you right over. It meant cards on every single birthday and calls to make sure you got that card. Bills slipped in your pockets after you refused 3 times, and a long memory of anything you were ever interested in. Our love for Grandma is endless. Loving her meant pretending to like this loaf of dill bread as much as the last, and looking forward to her pumpkin chocolate chip cookies every year. It meant laughing at what she did because you couldn't help it. She knew she was funny too. And listening to every story she told. It meant wearing her crew neck sweaters and raising our eyebrows at each other's and playing Roomy Cube, Bug Bingo, and Pass the Pigs. It means loving each other in all the ways she loves us. Love you lots, dear grandkids. I just want to speak to this experience that I had. I was in a place of fear and doubt and struggle and not knowing which direction to go, and I was asking for guidance. And to show up at Zao and to have the person that meets me there be a stranger on a train, and their willingness to share something personal and meaningful to them with me, I feel like it just really solidified for me the goal of what it is that I hope to create. I want to help make a world where we are open to spur the moment, intimate interactions with strangers, because it feels like we're all just looking for connection, and connection is all around us. So I hope that you enjoyed this as much as I did, and I hope that you can meet a stranger and hear the poem that they wrote about their grandma. Thank you for watching the podcast, and I love you lots. I'll see you next time.